After being cut off by my family for marrying someone they didn't approve of, I never thought I'd hear from them again. One day, my sister called, her voice shaky, saying, "Dad's sick. He wants to see you." I sat frozen, remembering the last time we spoke, when he yelled, "You are dead to me." Now, standing outside his hospital room, I took a deep breath and knocked. The door opened, and the first words out of his mouth made my heart stop. The last time I spoke to my father, his face was red with anger. His voice was so sharp it felt like it cut straight through me. "You are dead to me." Those words stayed with me for years, replaying in my head like an old, broken record. I should have known that day would be the last time I'd hear from him, or anyone else in my family. I should have understood that to them, I really was dead. And in a way, I let myself believe it too. I had no reason to think I'd ever be a part of their world again. Then, out of nowhere, my phone rang. I recognized the number immediately. It was my sister. My stomach twisted. She hadn't spoken to me in almost a decade. "Why now?" When I answered, I could hear it in her voice something was wrong. "Dad's sick," she said, her voice shaking. "He wants to see you." I sat frozen, gripping the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. For a long time, I didn't say a word. I just stared at the floor, trying to process it. Why now? After all these years of silence, after all the pain and anger, why now? Part of me wanted to hang up and pretend she never called. I owed him nothing, not after what he did to me. But another part, the part that still had scars from the way he cut me out of his life, needed to know why. So here I was, standing outside his hospital room, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I took a deep breath and knocked. The door opened, and the first words out of his mouth made my heart stop. I stepped inside, and the room smelled like disinfectant and something stale, like time had stopped here. My father lay in the hospital bed, thinner than I remembered, his face pale and sunken. His once strong hands trembled as he gripped the blanket. But his eyes were the same. Cold, sharp, unforgiving. And the first thing he said? "You finally decided to stop being selfish." I felt something in me snap. After all these years, after everything, that was how he greeted me? No apology, no regret, just more judgment. I clenched my fists, willing myself to stay calm. "You asked to see me," I said flatly. "Why?" He exhaled heavily, like this was an inconvenience. "Because I need you to do something." There it was. It wasn't about reconnecting. It wasn't about making things right. It was about him, just like it always was. I looked at my sister. She wouldn't meet my eyes. "You're the only one who can handle it," my father continued. "Your mother left everything in your name." My breath caught. "What?" He scoffed. "Don't act so surprised. She set up a trust before she died. And guess what? It's legally yours. But I need you to sign it over to the family. That money belongs to us, not you." I stared at him, my mind racing. My mother had died 2 years ago. I didn't even know. No one told me. And now he expected me to just give back whatever she left for me? After cutting me off like I was nothing? My voice came out colder than I expected. "You're telling me Mom left something for me, and instead of honoring her wishes, you want me to sign it over to you?" His jaw tightened. "You don't deserve it. After what you did to this family, you should be grateful I'm even letting you fix your mistake." I almost laughed. My mistake? My mistake was falling in love with someone they didn't approve of. My mistake was choosing happiness over their expectations. My mistake was thinking they'd ever love me unconditionally. I looked at my sister again. "Did you know about this?" She swallowed hard. "Dad said it wasn't rightfully yours." Of course, she took his side. They all did. I let out a slow breath. "I need time to think." His expression darkened. "No, you don't get to drag this out. You owe us this." I turned on my heel and walked out. I could hear him shouting behind me, but I didn't stop. I wasn't the same person they threw away all those years ago. And if they thought I was going to roll over and hand them everything after what they did, they had no idea who they were dealing with. I walked out of that hospital room, but my mind was a storm. My father's words echoed in my head. "You finally decided to stop being selfish. You don't deserve it. You owe us this." They spent years acting like I didn't exist. And now, suddenly, I mattered again, just because they needed something from me. I barely made it to my car before my sister caught up to me. "Wait," she called out, breathless. "Please, just listen for a second." I turned to face her. "What is there to say? You knew about Mom's trust, and no one told me. Not when she was sick, not when she died, not ever. But now that Dad needs something, suddenly I get a phone call." She flinched. "I wanted to tell you." "I swear I did." I let out a bitter laugh. "But you didn't." She looked away, chewing on her lip. "Dad wouldn't let us. He said you weren't family anymore." He said. She stopped herself, shaking her head. "It doesn't matter. What matters is that you need to sign the papers." My stomach twisted. "Why?" Why does he need it so badly? She hesitated. Too long. I narrowed my eyes. What are you telling me? She swallowed. He's in debt. I let that sink in. Dad always has money, I said slowly. He always made sure we knew that. He wouldn't even let me take out student loans because it was embarrassing for the family. So what happened? Her eyes darted around like she was afraid someone would hear. It's bad, she whispered. Really bad. He made some bad investments. Lost almost everything. The house? The cars? All gone. He's just been pretending everything is fine. My head spun. My father, the man who prided himself on power, on control, was broke. And now he wanted to use me to fix it. I laughed, shaking my head. So that's what this is? He doesn't want the money because it's rightfully his. He wants it because he needs it. She nodded, her eyes pleading. Please. If you don't do this, we'll lose everything. Dad, he's sick. He doesn't have much time left. Do you really want to let him die knowing his legacy is ruined? I felt something deep inside me snap. His legacy? That's what she was worried about? Not the fact that he threw me away like garbage? Not the fact that he let Mom die without telling me? You want me to fix this? I said quietly. After everything he's done to me, after everything you all did to me, you really think I'm just going to sign over whatever Mom left me? Tears welled up in her eyes. You don't understand. No, I cut her off. I do understand. I understand that when it was convenient, I was dead to you. And now that you need something, you're suddenly my family again. She opened her mouth, then closed it. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. I need to see the trust documents. All of them. She blinked. Why? Because I'm not just signing anything without reading it first. She hesitated. Dad won't like that. I smirked. I don't care. I met with the lawyer the next day. He was an older man, the kind who had seen enough family drama to last a lifetime. He greeted me with a tight smile and a thick folder of documents. I was wondering when you'd finally come in, he said. I frowned. What do you mean? He tapped the folder. Your mother made it very clear that this trust was only for you. She knew your father would try to take it. That's why she set up so many protections. My hands tightened around the papers. She knew. She knew what kind of man he was. How much is in there? I asked, bracing myself. He flipped through the pages and slid one toward me. My stomach dropped. It wasn't just a little inheritance. It was millions. Generational wealth. Money that could change my life forever. And my father expected me to just hand it over. I closed the folder slowly. If I refuse to sign it over, what happens? The lawyer smiled for the first time. Nothing. It's yours. Completely. Legally. For the first time since my sister called, I felt something close to relief. Then my phone buzzed. It was my sister. I let it go to voicemail, but a message popped up almost immediately. You need to sign it. You don't understand what he'll do if you don't. A chill ran down my spine. What he'll do? I stared at the message, my heart pounding. This wasn't over. Not even close. I stared at my sister's message. You need to sign it. You don't understand what he'll do if you don't. A deep, uneasy feeling settled in my gut. I knew my father was ruthless, but what was she trying to warn me about? I texted back. What do you mean? No response. I waited, watching the 3 little dots appear, then disappear. Then another message came through. Just be careful. I exhaled sharply, gripping my phone. She was hiding something. And whatever it was big. That night, I got a call from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail, but when I listened to the message, my blood ran cold. You think you're smart, don't you? You're making a big mistake. Sign the papers. Or you'll regret it. The voice was deep, calm. I didn't recognize it, but I knew exactly where it came from. My father. I should have been scared. Maybe the old me would have been. But after everything he put me through, I was done being afraid of him. He wanted to play dirty? Fine. I could play too. The next morning, I went straight to my mother's lawyer. I want to move the money, I said. He raised an eyebrow. Move it where? Somewhere safe. Somewhere no one. Not my father, not my sister, not anyone can touch it. He nodded slowly, then pulled out more paperwork. It'll take some time to transfer everything, but we can make sure it's secure. Do it, I said. Then I leaned forward. And one more thing. I want to know everything about my mother's estate. Every single detail. The lawyer hesitated. Why? I clenched my jaw. Because I don't trust them. And I have a feeling there's more they're not telling me. I was right. A few days later, the lawyer called me with news that made my stomach twist. Your mother didn't just leave you money, he said. She left you everything. The house, the land, her shares in the family business. It was all mine. And my father had been hiding it from me. I gripped the phone. So what happens if I claim it? The lawyer sighed. Your father and sister would have to leave the house. Immediately. The company shares would be transferred to you. Legally, they have no right to anything. I let that sink in. My father wasn't just in debt. He was living in a house that wasn't his, running a business with shares that weren't his, keeping up a lifestyle that wasn't his. And the second I made a move, it would all come crashing down. I went to the hospital the next day. When I walked into his room, he smirked. Finally came to your senses? I pulled up a chair, slow and deliberate. Actually, I said, crossing my arms, I came to tell you that I know everything. His smirk faded. The house? The land? The company shares? They're mine, I continued, watching his face darken. Mom left them to me. And you lied. You tried to steal it. All of it. His hands gripped the hospital blanket, his knuckles turning white. You ungrateful little, I leaned in. Here's what's going to happen, I said calmly. I've already moved the money. You'll never see a cent of it. And as for the house? You and my sister have 30 days to get out. After that, I'll have the sheriff remove you. His face turned red. You wouldn't dare. I smiled. Try me. I stood up, my heart pounding. For years, you told me I was dead to you, I said quietly. But now? You're dead to me. Then I walked out. My father tried to fight it. He tried to contest the will, drag things through court. But my mother was smarter than him, her documents were airtight. 30 days later, he and my sister were forced out of the house. The business? I sold my shares. Watched from a distance as the company crumbled without the money to keep it afloat. My father lost everything. And me? I finally started my own life. Free from him. Free from all of them. And I never looked back.